Hello and welcome back to the unit tutorial for History Year 5, Unit 1, Anglo-Saxons and Scots, and this video, Part 2. I'm Megan Latchford and I'm the Design Lead at Art Curriculum Plus for Primary History, Geography and Science. This video will walk you through the following areas: how to adapt activities and lessons, how to plan for the Enquiry Question, and key moments in the unit to look out for. A great resource to use to adapt pupil activities in this unit is the online ebook workbook. And this is going to be a demonstration of how to use the ebook to adapt activities. And here I'm using the Year 3 Science workbook, but this video applies to all year groups and all subjects. To access the ebook workbook for the unit, log into Oxford OWL, select the year group and subject you want, in this case Science Year 3, for your case History Year 5. And the first resource on the list is the ebook. Now this is an online exact copy of the pupil physical workbook. Use the arrows to scroll through the pages and you can find all the units for that particular subject and year group within this ebook, just like in the physical copy. Select the activity you want to adapt by using the snipping tool and highlighting that section. You may be familiar with the snipping tool, but it can be found by searching in the search bar or simultaneously pressing Windows, Shift and S. Drag your mouse to highlight the area you want to copy, and that section of your screen will be copied onto your clipboard. And now you can press Paste, and that section will be pasted onto the document you want. Sometimes you may find that Word works best, and sometimes perhaps Publisher. I like to use Word for the draw tool if I want to highlight anything or write in handwriting, and Publisher is quite good for moving around text boxes and shapes. Now you can adapt the activity in any way you want. Here you can see I'm actually adding an extra label, but adapt the activity to the needs of your class. Then you can print this out and stick it on top of the activity in the pupil workbook. Every lesson starts with a knowledge quiz except for lesson 1. Knowledge quizzes can be implemented in a variety of ways, which entirely depend on what works best for your class. They are an important step to check for understanding and address any misconceptions, so try not to miss them out. We have found from teacher feedback that most teachers teach these quizzes with pupils sat at desks independently answering the questions, and this is great if it works for your pupils and keep doing if so. But there are other options if you feel this isn't the best method for your class. You could read through the questions and options the whole class and answer each question one by one, breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. You may wish to start the year with pupils answering the questions as a whole class by showing a number on their hands for each option. For example, 1, 2, 3, and 4. To keep track of answers in this way, you could keep a record of the general consensus the class has come to, or even make a note in the workbook you've kept aside as a teacher copy. As the year progresses, you may wish to make these knowledge quizzes more independent. The aim of the knowledge quiz is to assess the new learning from the previous lesson, and you can adapt this to any method which best suits your class. This is an activity from Lesson 1. I'm going to run through some of the activities in the workbook from Lesson 1 to 6, and we don't have time for all the activities, but I will give suggestions on how you may adapt them, and these ideas can be transferred to any other activities in the workbooks or slides. You don't have to use my examples or even adapt at all, but these are suggestions for ways in which you could. For this activity, pupils need to draw lines between the red dots to show where the Angles, Jutes and Saxons settled in England. To heavily support pupils, you could colour code the dots so pupils know where each group travelled to and from. Alternatively, you could offer pupils a labelled compass with the keywords in the text highlighted. Or you could even label the settlements in England. As a challenge, you could ask pupils the question, do you know any names of counties or cities in those areas of England? For this activity, there are many ways to support pupils. Pupils who had previously learnt about Saturn Who discoveries before this activity on the previous workbook page. You could highlight the key information, enabling them to successfully understand the key information to answer the right activity below. To go a step further, you could replace the empty lines with a more structured format for people to write their answers. You could take it a step further still and select two of the sources for people to write about. Obviously, this table could be larger, with room for all the sources to be written about, and with or without examples given. To stretch pupils, you could ask them to complete a challenge activity, such as which discovery or source do you think tells us the most about Anglo-Saxon England and why? To get people thinking on a more in-depth level about how valuable each source or discovery is. For activities such as this one, where pupils are asked to label this pyramid, you may find that some pupils need support with the size of the space they need to answer in and their own writing size. There is nothing stopping you from printing an enlarged version of the answer space, in this case the pyramid, and sticking it over the top of this section. If you only glue on the top edge, the activity could be lifted like a flap so the reading beneath could still be viewed and read. You could also print out labels like the ones on the right, using the answer slide for pupils to sort and stick onto the pyramid to take focus away from writing and onto thinking about the task at hand. To challenge pupils, you could ask them the challenge activity question, why do you think that a pyramid shape was used to show the Anglo-Saxon society? To get them thinking about how a pyramid shows the bottom portion of society as larger, meaning more people, and the top as smaller, meaning less people. For this activity in lesson 4, pupils are given blank lines to write on. For pupils with lower attainment, perhaps in writing, this may be fairly daunting. Activities can be adapted so pupils have a more structured and guided way of answering them. For this example, the lines have been stuck over with a table with guiding questions for each artifact. For the second question, the picture that's being referred to on a previous page is added, and arrows guiding pupils where to look have been put in. Pupils could write their inferences and ideas as more of a brainstorm format than as an extended right answer. Stretch pupils by adding a challenge activity such as would you have liked to have lived in the Anglo-Saxon times and why? To get people thinking about what life was like as a whole during Anglo-Saxon times and what the positives and negatives were. In this lesson, and many others, there are large chunks of text. To space it out to make it easier for pupils to read, you could enlarge and print it off, or enlarge and stick it over the corresponding page to make a flap, like the earlier pyramid activity, so that the text and image beneath could still be viewed. You could even highlight or underline the key words in the text. For this activity, pupils are asked to use the Old English alphabet to write their name. Some modern letters are missing, but in the unit planning guidance, teachers are guided to instruct pupils to use the closest letter to the missing letter or make up their own if necessary. To support pupils, you can enlarge this image and print it off as a separate resource, or even add the letters below, like so, to make it clearer which each are. Please note there are two T's in the bottom row. Stretch pupils by asking the challenge questions such as, how do you think most Anglo-Saxon people heard news, learnt songs and stories if they could not read? For this lesson 6 activity, you could use the answer slide to select a few bullet points and create labels for pupils to sort and stick in. To support further, you could highlight some of the labels and keywords in the table or partially complete to give pupils more time working on the other boxes. To stretch pupils, challenge them by asking them to complete an activity such as describe what a significant person in history is. To recap, this is the inquiry question for this unit. Lesson 6 is only an hour to provide time within the lesson for pupils to complete this activity. How pupils complete this end of unit assessment is decided by your school, year group, class teacher. So now is a great time to think ahead to plan for what this will look like. support teachers with implementing the Enquiry Question, we've created an Enquiry Question support document. Here you can find the information you will need and an additional activity for pupils to complete. This could support them as a planning activity, be a recap of the entire unit knowledge to refresh memories for the assessment, or be edited into the assessment itself. The Enquiry Question support document for this unit can be found with the other resources on Oxford OWL. Your inquiry question could be answered in many ways. Here are some possibilities. It could be an extended write, a poster, a presentation, a question paper, a multiple choice quiz, or whatever best suits your class. For every unit, there are elements that will need to be planned in advance for the class teacher. You'll need to plan an engaging hook. You could show photographs, read a story, show a video or image, or something even more creative. You may need to print off additional resources for each lesson that has one. Not every lesson will have additional resources, so make sure you check before you teach. And you will also need to gather resources for specific lessons. In Lesson 1, if you are local to East Sussex, a site visit to the English Heritage Castle will be valuable. In Lesson 2, there is an option to locate and print some images of the Sutton Hoo excavation. In Lesson 3, there's an option to use maps or laptops. Lesson 4, there's an option to research and provide pupils Anglo-Saxon riddles. And here is a list of possible trips and recommended reading for the whole unit. And you can pause the video here to read through the list. Hopefully you now feel confident about accessing and teaching this unit. Any questions, please send to primarymastery@curriculumplus.org.uk, and we welcome all feedback to ensure that these resources are as supportive as possible for you and your pupils.